Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. Alright guys, the content for tonight is of course focusing on this new framework deal that the Republicans and the Democrats have come to an agreement on in Congress. Now, of course, they've put this out. This is like their big grandstand flag, but there's a few things that I want to highlight here before we get into the actual bill. One, this is just a handshake verbal agreement. Nothing has been put on paper. Nothing has been signed. It is literally just awaiting legislation drafting, which is where they're going to have a lot of issues going forward. This is not a done deal. This is not a faraway deal. This is just in the process. Now, we've been waiting on exactly what they just released. Every single day, I've been telling you to get ready to get the phones and the emails and the tweets and however you communicate. It's time. All those push-ups we've been doing, all that little dial-in practice, it's time. Let's bring it to bear. Because we can make this difference. Because like I said, this has not been drafted. There's a lot of things that we're about to talk about, but understand this is a handshake agreement at this point, and we can still affect change. Don't leave me now. Let's get it. Everything is linked in the description box below, and make sure that you guys tune in and subscribe and make that bell on, because this is going to be evolving quickly, and we need to get information to you very, very soon. All right. What's in the bipartisan gun deal and what's not? Now, what's important here is they're focusing on what's not as well. I'm going to walk you through this whole thing because the left, like I talked about, is starting to get upset and you're starting to hear rumblings of it didn't go far enough. But let's continue. I'm going to show you what's in and what's out. Washington CNN. A bipartisan group of senators unveiled an agreement on principle for gun safety legislation. Agreement on principle. Again, reinforcing this is not legislation. It's not written yet. Providing an overview of forthcoming package of reforms to address one of the nation's most pressing and divisive issues. You guys know the rest of that. All right, here's the last piece, then we're going to get what's in it, what's not. One of the biggest factors still to be sorted out in the framework agreement is how the legislation will be written. Even CNN is saying there's a lot of stuff to do here, okay? The announcement includes the support of 10 Republican senators, which would give the proposal enough support to overcome the Senate filibuster. We've talked about that. We know that. But maintaining it through the legislative process will be a massive challenge for lawmakers to accomplish before the next congressional recess in 2 weeks. Now I'm going to hit everything here. One, they've got to get an entire draft legislation drafted. They have to get agreement on it. They have to get it signed. They have to bring it up for a vote. It has to get passed through the Senate. Then it has to go to the House. If they do any change, it has to be written from the House. Then it has to be reconfirmed from the Senate. All within 2 weeks. This is going to be a race to the finish, and if they go into recess before this happens, that's a thing. All right, so let's show you what's actually included. It's like a Bob Seger song here. What to leave in, what to leave out. All right, reforms included in the agreement. Red flag laws. Well, we knew this one was coming. This was not a surprise to us, but what they did was very important. We mentioned in earlier videos they didn't do red flag laws nationally. They did funding at a state level. Very important difference. One of the most significant pieces of framework is helping states create and implement so-called red flag laws, which are aimed at keeping guns out of the hands of those who pose a threat to themselves or others. You guys know what red flags laws are. However, the legislation would provide significant funding to help states create new red flag laws, but the 19 that already have red flag laws, they get more funding to make it more effective, which I find ironic because if it was in place and it was working, you wouldn't need to make it more effective with funding. I digress. That's not about logic. Let's keep going. Mental health and telehealth investment. The proposal also includes, quote, major investments to increase access to mental health and suicide prevention programs. Okay. And other support services available in the community, including crisis and trauma intervention and recovery. So that, I feel like, is one of those things that Republicans were really levying for. Now this one, I'm about to show you, closing the so-called boyfriend loophole, this one snuck up. And I think that this one got in here because it was a little bit of horse trading. I think the Republicans said, we're not doing national red flag laws, and the Dems said, well, you got to give me something, so they went with boyfriend loophole. All right. The senators said the legislation will address the so-called boyfriend loophole, which deals with whether unmarried partners could keep guns if they were found guilty of violence against a dating partner. Now, the interesting thing, as I mentioned, with the horse trading, the boyfriend loophole, the history of that, it was actually removed from the omnibus bill package. It never got in because the NRA raised the stink, GOA raised the stink with the omnibus bill budget package a couple months ago. Well, now it's come back with the vengeance and it's slid into this one. Like I said, I think this is to sweeten the deal for the Democrats to get them to sign on because national red flag laws weren't there and all the other things that are missing. We're about to get into that in 1 second. All right, just covered that. Enhanced review process for buyers under 21. Now this one, This one has constitutional concerns. The other major change in the legislation is issuing a more thorough review process for people between ages of 18 to 21 who go to buy a gun like an AR-15. By the way, side note, when I say constitutional concerns, this whole thing has constitutional concerns, I mean challengeable in court easily. That's what I meant. Under a background check review, the National Instant Criminal Background Check System would have to also contact state and local law enforcement to search for any disqualifying mental health or juvenile records according to Democratic aid. Now, what that essentially means is they're going to have to make the process more thorough, but what does that do for turnaround times? That's what's important because you're denying an individual the rights that they have. NICS would have to call the appropriate agency that adjudicates mental health records in each state. NICS would have up to 3 days to conduct the search, but it could be extended another 7 days if the initial review raises concern, meaning the process could take a total of 10 days. I know what you're thinking. That is a mandatory waiting period. Well, CNN saw you saying that. Look at the next thing. It is not an established waiting period since each individual's review could be vastly different from just a matter of hours to up to 10 days. So what they've put in here is they've said, well, it's not a mandatory waiting period because everyone doesn't have to do it. You just have to go through the system, and it might take an hour, it might take 10 days, but it's not a universal system. Like I said, all of this is constitutionally concerning, but this one, how do you discern who does, who doesn't? Is it constitutional from a standpoint of challenging in the court? That's a thing. Red flag laws is also going to be challenged in the court. I have a funny feeling. They also included clarifying the definition of a federally firearm licensed dealer, school security resources, so that's hardening schools and providing training. And now let's look at what they actually left out, because this is what's kind of got the Democrats a little upset. Well, the progressive ones. Expanded background checks. So that's H.R. 8 and 1446. Not there. We talked about it. Not there. So far, the only thing that really surprised us, at least in my opinion, was the boyfriend loophole. We didn't see that coming. All right? Notably, the agreement doesn't include a provision that would expand background checks for all firearm sales or transfers in the country. Currently, background checks are not required for gun sales and transfers by unlicensed and private sellers. That was a sacred cow of the Dems. Didn't get in there. Okay, that's one. The second one, there were no bans of any kind. Also left out is a federal ban on military-style assault weapons, another measure Democrats have been pursuing in recent years, citing the situations that have involved such weapons. Again, another sacred cow didn't get in. So far, I can't put my finger on a sacred cow of the Democrats that actually got into this legislation. This is not good. But from a standpoint of the left's perspective, I can't see one that they're super excited about, or they have been for a while. And here's the last one that also didn't get in there. Additionally, the agreement doesn't include a change to the age at which a person needs to be to purchase an assault-style weapon. Democrats, including West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin, the chamber's most conservative Democrat, have said the age to purchase assault weapons must be raised from 18 to 21. Didn't get in there. So in summation, you've got red flag laws, funding for them across the board. You have raising the wait times for 18 to 21-year-olds to buy firearms, not ARs, firearms. Now, the interesting part about this, it's not a mandatory waiting period, like I said. It's just if it works. If it doesn't, it can be up to 10 days. That's the minimum. Then you get to proceed. That's what they're saying. Again, none of this is written down. And now the things that they left out, you've got no expanded background checks, which would be H.R. 8 and 1446. You have no bans of any kind, magazine or AR, and you have no minimum age purchase increase. So when you're looking at what they've considered sacred cows across the board, I can't really find one, and the only one that is a surprise that we didn't see coming, didn't know was on the table, is the boyfriend loophole. And that's kind of my report for you guys tonight. Make sure you are subscribed. Everything is going to be updating, spinning on a top, man. This is going to be incredibly fast-paced. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Hope it helps out, and I'll see you tomorrow morning on the Bullet Points. I'm Braden. See you later.